Sup, y'all, and welcome to the Jack Vita Show. I'm your host, Jack Vita, back in action after a 2-week break. I apologize for the delay getting these podcasts out. I was on the shelf with bronchitis, but I've finally been cleared to play. I'm back in action, and we've got a big week coming up. Today is December 9th, 2019. This is the first of 3 podcast episodes that I will be recording this week. I'll tell you about what we got coming up today in a little bit. Later this week, I'm recording an episode with Paul Oren from the Northwest Indiana Times, where we will give our picks for the all-decade sports teams of the 2010s, including our all-decade MLB team, NFL team, college basketball team, and NBA team. So that is going to be a lot of fun. Then I've got a bonus episode coming out that I will be recording on the weekend with Tommy Weber. Last year we did an episode that was very popular where we talked about the Santa Claus, the 1994 Christmas movie starring Tim Allen. 'Tis the season right now. It's Christmas time already. It's been a fast year, and it's time for the sequel. We're going to do the Santa Claus 2. That's going to be a lot of fun. So keep your eyes out for that. Today, though, we have a college football championship weekend recap. One of the great weekends of the year just wrapped up. And we're going to recap the games from the weekend. We've got some NFL talk, and we've also got the Major League Baseball winter meetings getting started this morning. So much to get to today. So now I'd like to bring in our guest for today. He's a Purdue Boilermaker. He's pumped up about the big win from last week that the men's basketball team had over University of Virginia. How are you doing today, Jake Paliga?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's a 29-point victory over number 5 Virginia, too, just to clarify that up there.
Unbelievable. I don't even think was that game even on ESPN or?
It was ESPN 2, I believe.
Yeah. So it was relegated to it was the second tier is the way they were looking at that one. And no one was prepared for the shellacking that the Boilermakers had in store.
Yeah, absolutely classic from the national media, just kind of throwing Purdue down the dumps. But we're gonna have a good team this year. We're super young.
Yeah, I like what they've got this year with Matt Harms and Nigel Eastern. I believe I said his first name correctly.
No gel, but it was close.
They got a good squad. They got a great coach, and the Big Ten is looking very tough this year.
Yeah, I know. Big Ten's looking real nice. Michigan State hasn't exactly lived up to their expectations yet, but we're turning 0 starters right now, and we only have 1 senior. He was a grad transfer, so the young team going through the growing pains, but a huge W over number 5 Virginia at home. So looking up from there.
Have they put out the rankings this week? Is Purdue ranked?
Ooh, that's a good question. They actually they come out right around this time. It's always Monday morning around noon.
Yeah.
Let me see that. I've heard some mixed reviews on whether we're going to be ranked or not. But we were getting points last week, so I'd assume that we get at least more and maybe hop in there in like the 23-22 slot.
Yeah, potentially. They had a tough quality loss that I watched over the holidays against Florida State. That was a really good game, but they didn't close out that game very well.
Jack, that's been the classic story of this year. All 3 of our losses have been just games where we were leading in the second half and just ended up blowing a big lead. Tough to watch, but that's a young team for you.
Jake, you are very high on the football team for next year too.
Ooh, don't even get me started about that. So I'll just give you a quick rundown on what to look for Purdue football in 2020. Because my bold prediction here is that we're going to be a ranked team for, I'm hoping at least most of this year or most of next year. But so we just 2 days ago we got Lorenzo Neal. He was our defensive tackle that missed all this year, projected in the second round. He just announced that he's going to return for his senior year. So that's huge. And then so we get to pair him next to George Karlaftis, who was a 5-star recruit coming out. Looks like a potential first rounder. He was a true freshman this year. and then get Rondale Moore back, who's projected first round, and then to add him with David Bell, who broke so many records this year as a true freshman, getting almost 50% of our passes.
Yeah, that's a promising squad. I'll be excited to look out and see what they've got next year. But let's talk about this big weekend in college football. Really one of my favorite weekends on the sports calendar. I really enjoy the Saturday and also Friday. You get that Pac-12 game on the Friday to have all these conference championships, Jake. And despite all these great games, I'm a sucker for the Dr. Pepper student giveaway challenge. That's my favorite part.
Oh yeah, we were watching that. It seemed like this weekend though, it seemed like the girl kept beating the guy.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I was watching with my roommate, and I was saying if that was me, I'd just give her my check too and say that's disappointing. Good for you though.
Yeah, it's interesting how the event has evolved into the shovel pass or the basketball chess pass that they do. It's not a real football pass. I know some people don't like that, but look, it's the most efficient way to get that shot off, and you want to get as many out there as you can because you're going for $100,000.
Yeah, no, that's one thing we were talking about too. Because I made the argument that I would just rather get down on one knee and just start chucking them in there like a quarterback drill.
Oh.
But I don't know. I don't know if they allow you to go on one knee or not. To be honest, that's a good question.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone do that. It's usually typically just a chest pass.
Yeah, I feel like in the past, maybe like 5 years ago, I don't know how old this event is. It's fairly young. It seemed like in the earlier part, there were people who tried to go with the traditional quarterback pass as if they were playing that kind of arcade game at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. But
yeah.
Someone cracked the code and figured out the chest pass is the way to go, and that's everyone's followed suit, and that's what we get now. And I don't complain about it. To me, I just love seeing the raw emotion of these students getting really Dr. Pepper stepping in there and enabling them to chase their dreams. It's a very exciting moment, especially when you see the raw emotion and the tears from some of the students.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely great. I think you're right. It's only a couple of years old, but I feel like it's the best halftime show out there right now. I mean, always keeps us locked in, and obviously for a good cause. And I mean, Dr. Pepper is just absolutely killing the game with that. I think everyone here could say that they've seen the Dr. Pepper challenge or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I was just thinking every year there's so much pushback with the Super Bowl halftime show. People are always love it or hate it with social media. Oh, it's this person, don't want that. What if the NFL just said for a halftime show, we're going to just have like 10 of these duels? It would never happen, but I would be so satisfied with that.
Oh, hey, that'd be much better than the Genesis halftime show. You ever watch that one on Monday Night Football?
Oh yeah, those are so weird.
That's a tough watch. I feel bad for whoever's in that Genesis Entertainment marketing department and decided to take up that project because I don't know if they're gonna have a job anymore.
So, Jake, the college football playoff final rankings are in. LSU 1, Ohio State 2, Clemson 3, Oklahoma 4. I think they got this right. I don't think there's much to really debate here. How do you feel about these rankings?
Yeah, I'm completely with you. This is coming into championship weekend. This is honestly ideally what I wanted to see. I mean, maybe Ohio State at 1, 2. I think there's a pretty legitimate argument that you could say Ohio State's better than LSU, but at the same time, LSU completely handled Georgia in their championship game, and Ohio State ran into some trouble. So I think it's definitely the right ranking. But I think this makes for the best matchups. I think in terms of just matchups here, you look at that Oklahoma LSU game, and I think a lot of people are gonna think LSU blows them out. But I don't know. Oklahoma's defense this year, it's probably the best defense they've had in at least since I could remember. And then Jalen Hurts is the real deal. He's something special to watch there. Just the way he carries himself and his whole persona. You feel like he just never gets rattled by anything. He's always calm, cool, and collect. he's one of my favorite players to watch in the game. And then that Ohio State Clemson matchup, wow, that's going to be I feel bad because that's two of the best three college football teams we've had in recent years, and I don't know. That's going to be a hell of a game there, though. I think Ohio State pulls it out, but I would not be surprised to see Clemson win that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think it's going to be great matchups. I mean, I don't think LSU is going to end up having too much trouble, but what I do think, you touched on this. What a great story with Jalen Hurts this year. The fact that he's playing in the college football playoff and Alabama isn't, there's just some sweet irony to that.
That's just that's what I like to call some good karma there too. You mean, like he got benched in the national championship game and then had to ride the pine for a whole year behind Tua, who is obviously getting all this national media attention. And then he comes out. I remember at Bama, he was a projected like maybe fifth, sixth round quarterback. Maybe you turn him into a running back. And ever since then, he's just developed a solid passing game. He's got the intangibles, So I expect him. He's one of the guys that I would love for the Bears to take in the second round this year.
Ooh.
If he falls. Yeah. that'd be a nice best case scenario. He got the one thing Mitch doesn't have, that's just that it factor that
right.
That just killer drive and handle anything. I just feel like that's so important.
Well, we will get to Mitch and the Bears a little later on in this show today. Let's talk a little more about what we saw this weekend. Man, it seemed like none of these Pac-12 teams really ended up wanting to get into that game. We saw Oregon go down just a couple weeks ago, and then we saw Oregon take down Utah. There were a lot of questions about how strong Utah was all season long in terms of their schedule, and Oregon beat them by at least 2 touchdowns. Really, it took a lot of suspense. Like, that game was not suspenseful, but it added a lot of suspense for Saturday because it put so much more emphasis on the Big 12 title game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a good watch. I wouldn't say it's a great watch, but
yeah, I enjoy
watching Justin Herbert do his thing. He's a special quarterback, and then Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't know if you're too familiar with him, but he's Oregon's defensive end. I think he was the number one rated recruit coming out of high school last year, I believe. And I don't know if you watched him, but he just had a field day. He's someone special.
Yeah, he is.
That I'd be looking out for in these next 2 years, and there's going to be I think he's going to be that Chase Young 2.0 2 years down the road from here.
Yeah, and what was so weird about these playoffs, Jake, in the past, I've been someone who's been pounding the table saying, let's get more teams in, and I still would like to expand in the future because I love the March Madness setup. I'd like to see 8 teams, 16 teams, but this year, there were so many teams that seemed to just kind of bow out towards the end of the year. We got it with Oregon. We got it with Utah. We got it with Alabama. We got it from a couple other SEC teams, like maybe Georgia, if you want to talk about that. It almost seems that 4 is just the perfect amount for this season in particular.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I'm on the boat where I want to move to 8 too, because it's for the same reasons. I love the March Madness aspect, and more teams, the higher chance for a Cinderella story you have. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like this year, I didn't really want to see Bama in it. I didn't want to see. I mean, I would have liked to see Georgia, I guess, just because I enjoy watching Jake Fromm. But I don't know. It's just it would have been like 4 SEC teams or something like that. And that,
yeah.
And I just think what we got going on this for this year, I think it was the perfect. Especially with how the championship games ended up, because I don't know about you, but me personally, I watched a couple of Utah games this year, and I didn't think they were that legit. I know their defense and their run game was really good, and they had a really athletic QB, but I just never thought they were the real deal. And I was hoping that they'd lose in that Oregon game just so I could see Jalen Hurts have a chance to get in. But I think if Utah would have gotten in, they would have gotten absolutely just ran over by LSU.
Yeah, I think there was a better case to be made for the 8 team, which I still want to see us get there because I do think it adds, even if the best 4 teams run through that first round. It just gives more games. I think it ends up making more money. I think you could cut out a non-conference game on the schedule earlier, get rid of the week where Alabama plays the Citadel or whatever cupcake opponent they've got each year. But I think the case for the 8-team playoff worked out better the last 2 years when you had UCF knocking on the door 2 straight perfect regular seasons. And Memphis had a really nice run, but did they have 1 loss or 2 losses? It wasn't like, I think in order for that non-Power 5 school to get in, they have to go undefeated.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I mean, do you remember back in the Fiesta Bowl that Oklahoma versus Boise State game? Yeah, I actually had that game on video. My dad bought it for me a couple years ago, but that was one of those special games where you think Boise State's going to get just absolutely ran over, and I don't know what they were. I'm assuming a double-digit underdog at least, but I just remember watching them, and they just pulled out all the stops of that game, and I think there's room for that in college football. I think. Yeah. I mean, it's a football game. You get one interception, and then a lucky bounce on a fumble, and you're right in that ball game. And I think UCF, to your point about UCF, I think they could have definitely competed that one year. I remember them. They played in their CUS, or I think it's a CUSA, but they played in their.
No, they're in the American, I think.
Okay, yeah, American, yeah. But I remember they played in that conference game, just absolutely ran through whoever they played, and they were claiming the national title, but kind of sucks to not see them get in. I'd definitely like the 18 playoff, because then you could go to getting all the Power 5 conference winners in. You could maybe and then select like 3 at-large bids, hopefully 1 or 2 of them, one of those UCF, Boise State, Cinderella stories.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I've been advocating for the last few years.
I think they're moving towards it too. From what I've heard, at least, I think so too. I think it's pretty inevitable that we're going to get to 8. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense for college, for like the NCAA in general too. It's just viewers and just a lot more hype around it, you know.
The Memphis Tigers, I will say, I was impressed with them. We'll see what they can do in one of these BCS bowls. It might be the Cotton Bowl. I'm not sure what they'll get, but they beat Cincinnati 2 weeks in a row. And Jake, you grew up playing sports at a high level. I grew up playing sports, maybe not as high a level as you did, but it's very difficult to beat a team more than once, especially in back-to-back weeks. So I was impressed with what they did at the end of the season as a non-Power 5 school.
100%. It's tough to beat a team 2 times in a row regardless, but to handle them 2 times in a row too, that's just even more impressive.
Yeah. The Big 12 game, definitely the game of the weekend, right?
Yeah, I would definitely. That was anytime. I am the biggest advocate for college football overtime. I think the NFL needs to adopt that ASAP.
I agree.
Especially after that Patriots-Chiefs game last year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime I'm getting free college football, just absolutely love to see it. And that game was a nail biter. I don't know. I kept thinking that Utah was gonna, or that Oklahoma was gonna blow it, and they just ended up coming back. And that's what I'm saying with Jalen Hurts. He just got that it factor, you know.
Baylor used 3 different quarterbacks in that game, which made there was so much drama in that. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah, they all look pretty good though. I mean, college football is different than NFL, where it's not much of there's not much of a gap between starting quarterback and backup as there is NFL. But I thought the other guy, particularly I forgot his name, the one guy with longer hair, he had dreadlocks.
Yeah,
I thought he looked really good.
Oh yeah, they all look good. They have a good bunch. Yeah. Future is going to be good for them. No one was expecting this out of Baylor this year.
Oh yeah, I know their defense. I watched actually a healthy amount of Baylor games this year, and that defense is legit. I know they didn't play too well yesterday, or on Saturday, but that defense is definitely legit.
And then the other game I wanted to touch on, the Wisconsin fans on Saturday night. First of all, if you're a Wisconsin fan and you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I apologize. That was tough. It seemed like typical Badgers, but I did get a text from a Badgers fan who said, if the Badgers win by 3 scores, can they get into the playoff? And I said probably. I don't think the committee is going to let them in, but maybe there's a case to be made there. But unfortunately for Badgers fans, the second half did not play anything like that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. The whole time we were watching that game, we were having discussions about, wow, what happens if Wisconsin beats them by double digits, and what happens if I don't know, like what happens to the college football player? Because obviously you can't really leave Ohio State out of it.
No.
And so so I don't know. It would have been that would have caused a lot more controversy, and I think you kind of knew what was going to happen after Ohio State won that game. You knew Oklahoma was going to get that 4 seed, but that was a great game. Props to Wisconsin.
It was a very fun game. My last college football thought for now, and then we'll transition over to the NFL. I think you will agree. The best story we could get for a national championship would be Joe Burrow versus The Ohio State University, right?
I'm with you on that one. I think Ohio State, God, Justin Fields is he's everything you want in a quarterback right now. He's got me already thinking about that 2021 draft class. Bears tanking for it. But aside from that, he's a special player. He hits all those 15-yard out throws. He's got the it factor, like I was saying. He's mobile in the pocket. He's just a special player. It's kind of crazy too. You know the story between I'm sure you do, but how Justin Fields was the backup. Like all these guys in the college football play feel like they've all backed up each other at one point.
Yeah, I mean Trevor was a backup at the start of last year.
Yeah, for Kelly Bryant.
Yeah, and all the other guys are transfers.
Yeah. And then like you said, it's crazy how Jalen Hurts ends up in the college football playoff and Tua is not. Yeah.
So that's what I do think we will get. Is that your prediction?
I've been thinking about this. I think LSU will beat Oklahoma, although I do think it's going to be a closer game than people think. And then that Ohio State Clemson game, I want to take Ohio State because I think they are the better team, but Clemson's got the pedigree. They've been there. They've got the best quarterback in college football still, in my opinion. I think Trevor Lawrence is just a man among boys. And then, in my opinion, too, they've got the best receiver in the college football playoff. My guy to watch, actually, Justin Ross. He's a sophomore receiver from he's a 5-star recruiter, sophomore receiver from Clemson, though, and he's just an absolute stud. He's one of those guys I feel like if Clemson wins this ball game, he's going to have 3 tutties and like 150 through the air. I think he's set to break out. He just seems like one of those guys who is super talented, but kind of slid under the radar a little bit, and just set to break out on the big stage, you know?
Yeah. So give me your championship prediction real quick, and then we'll move over to these other sports.
You know, Jack, I'm gonna have to take Ohio State. I think they're the best team in the country. I think they're the best roster in the country, and I think quarterback-wise, there's really not much of a difference. Although I do think Joe Burrow might be a little more polished right now, but I think Chase Young is just going to have a monster day. He's going to be wreaking havoc all night in that national championship game. I don't know. It's tough too. This is a great college football playoff, but yeah. I think Ohio State will end up pulling it out. They've just got such good roster. There's a couple receivers they've got too that are getting like 3 passes a game, but they would be the best receiver on most teams in the country.
All right, good stuff there, Jake. I'm going to save my prediction for a little later because I still got a month here on the podcast, so I'll bring mine out in the future. All right, Jake, so we got plenty to talk about from the NFL. We're mainly just going to touch on a few points because we're doing a few subjects here today. Let's start with the game last night, the primetime game. The Seahawks got pummeled by the Rams. The Rams starting to look like the team that they had the last 2 years, last year that went to the Super Bowl. And I hate to say it, Jake, but I think Russell Wilson's MVP case is, I don't want to say dwindling, but the last 3-4 weeks, I've watched him on primetime, and he just hasn't played at the MVP caliber level. I think he's no doubt a Pro Bowler, maybe an All-Pro. I guess, I don't know if maybe second team All-Pro or whatever you want to do there. But I think Lamar Jackson is really coming in with the most momentum here down the stretch. And Kirk Cousins is also playing at a very high level here. It's going to be interesting to see, but I just look at 4 straight games where Russell's played well. I don't look at MVP caliber well. You might disagree with me here, but I look at that as that's a quarter of the season, and this is down the stretch where the guys who get the award tend to be the ones coming in with the most momentum. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, if you might know I'm a pretty big Russell Wilson guy.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. Just a lot of respect for him. I used to root for pretty hard for that Seahawks team when they had the Legion of Boom out there. That was a fun team to watch. But I don't know. I think you're right. I think if you look at the Ravens' final 3 games, they've got the Jets, the Ravens, or the Browns and the Steelers, and obviously 2 of those 3 games were subpar defenses. So I think Lamar's going to run through them, and then in that Steelers game's week 17, and he might even be benched. So I don't know. I think Russell, in my opinion, Russell might have been the front-runner going into the last night, but just because he's kind of single-handedly carrying his team. But at this point, I think Lamar has just done too much. He's got an easier schedule going forward, and I think he's pretty much locked that up.
Well, I don't think he's going to get the votes from the media. He doesn't get the same kind of respect, but I think Kirk Cousins belongs in the conversation for what he's done here down the stretch. We have a group text going. Someone just sent a text comparing those guys' stats, Kirk and Russell. They both are remarkably similar in terms of a lot of different categories. Now, Russell adds the element of the plays on his feet and the rushing yards, but to the downside of that is Russell ends up taking some bad sacks when he makes those plays. So I think they kind of are pretty even, but I do think Kirk is the guy who's coming down the stretch here with a little more momentum, but he's not going to get the votes just because of the amount of respect that, for whatever reason, the media and the fan bases have towards Kirk Cousins. He doesn't get the same kind of respect. Maybe he's slowly changing that narrative, but I think he belongs in the conversation at least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's far-fetched, though. I think he's probably put together the best season of his career. And thanks to, he's got a great supporting cast, though, too. And I think that's one thing that Kirk's got going for him well over Russ is he's throwing the ball to DK Metcalf, a rookie receiver who can only really run 3 or 4 routes.
Who's looked good, though. He's looked good.
Yeah, he has looked good. I will say that. And then Tyler Lockett obviously missed some time and gone through a little bit of a slump here. But other than that, Kirk's got Dalvin Cook. He's got the good old line. He's got Thielen, and he's got 2 good tight ends, Thielen and Diggs. He's got a good defense. I think Kirk's a good quarterback. I'm not putting anything against him, but he's got that perfect situation this year. I do think if the Vikings are going to do something within this window that they're in the next 2-3 years, I think it's going to be this year. I think they just, even though they're going to be going through the road in the playoffs, most likely, obviously, I still think they've got a shot to upset some teams. They'll probably play. They're probably gonna end up playing Dallas or Philly for week 1, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless they couldn't get, they're only 1 game out of the division, so they could get the division still. It'd be a big game when Packers-Vikings meet again. Yeah,
that'll be a huge game. So that NFC this year, actually both conferences are wrapping up to be pretty good. Yeah, like I was saying, I like the Seahawks, like to root for them, and if you look at their schedule, it looks like they should win these next 2 ones, and then week 17 they're going to match up versus the 49ers, and that's going to be one that you don't usually get that on week 17. Usually week 17, benching your starters, especially 2 teams who are going to have only 2 or 3 losses. That's going to be a good one, probably for the division. Yeah, and that'll be a special one.
I do want to just go back to one thing you said, and then we'll move on. I will say that I don't think Kirk's offensive line has been I mean, maybe it's average at best. It was really bad last year. I don't think he's got an amazing offensive line. The other thing is Thielen has missed time, so I think he's had to work through some stuff this year too. I don't think it's been. I don't know if I'd say it's been perfect, but he's definitely set up very well with that Vikings team.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like you said, the O-line obviously not great, but still a solid O-line.
Yeah, a lot better from last year. That's a big key to their success this year.
Yeah, I think Mike Zimmer does a great job too of getting Dalvin Cook involved in the passing game, and I think his game plan this year has been great. I've heard some murmurs that if they miss the playoffs this year, he'll be one of the guys in the hot seat, but I don't know. If I were the Vikings, I wouldn't move on from him.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about. I will say real quick. 3 weeks ago I was riding the McCaffrey MVP train. I'm off that now. Based on the Panthers just coming unglued here down the stretch, they're not going to be a good enough team. He's had a great year. If you want to talk about a non-quarterback, maybe talk about Michael Thomas in that conversation. Yeah. But it does seem like it's Lamar's to win right now, or Lamar's to lose, I should say.
I'm with you on that. I think Chris McCaffrey 5 weeks ago, you could have made a great case for him, especially if the Panthers end up making the playoffs. Because I mean, you could argue his role is just as important, if not more important, than a lot of these quarterbacks. Relative to his team, but now with the collapse there, and I don't know, Kyle Allen's kind of taken a step back. It's been he's still putting together an amazing year, and shout out to anyone who's got him in fantasy and not lucky enough to have that, but. He's been a special player, and I think if there was a Michael Thomas, I think you got to give it to him. But CMC's a special player, and I think right now there's really, in my opinion, not much of an argument that he's the best running back in football right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Let's talk about the biggest game that everyone seems to be talking about from yesterday. The Patriots and Chiefs. Now, the Patriots have lost the last 2 weeks. They still have 10 wins. It seems whenever the Patriots hit a speed bump, any time over the last 7 years, the sky is falling in terms of the perception from the fans. People want to write them off. I'm not writing them off yet. There were some questionable officiating calls or no calls that we saw yesterday that really, I think, could have swung the game either way. And sometimes your team is on the wrong side of those. Patriots were on the wrong side of those yesterday. I still think that the Patriots, I still trust them. They still have Tom Brady. They still got Bill Belichick. I think they're going to figure it out. But a lot of people are raising some questions. What do you think, Jake?
Jack, the good old New England Patriots. That's a hot topic nowadays, and one that I'm constantly getting in debates about. But yeah, I've been a Tom Brady backer for the last 6 or 7 years, big time. I've always loved him, but just over this like stretch run where into his late 30s and early 40s, he's just impressed me in every single way. And like you said, this happens almost every year. It feels like last year at this time, everyone was saying, "Oh, they don't have any receivers. Defense isn't as good as it used to be," and all this stuff. But I just feel like every single year they have that factor, and NFL playoff football is so situational. It's just incredibly situational. And Bill and Tom, there's no duo in NFL history that you'd want in a playoff football game than them. And so I don't know. I'm not writing them off. I would still, even at this point, I might put the Ravens as my AFC favorite, but I would still have to think hard about that, and I might even put the Pats just because, like we talked about earlier, beating two teams beating the same team twice in one season, that's a tough feat, and that's what the Ravens are going to have to do. Obviously, it looks like it's going through Baltimore, but I still think it's just Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and the defense this year is as good as it's been in the last 5-10 years. So I still think this team's got plenty. I think if there is one thing that scares me about them, I would say it's the offensive line. But I don't know, Brady's so good in the pocket, just moving around in there, getting the ball out quick. And I think when you factor in the playoffs and just the whole element, I don't think I'm going to be able to take as good as Lamar has been this year. I don't think I'm going to be able to take a sophomore quarterback who is inarguably a limited thrower, regardless of like how amazing he is. Other than that, but I just think Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. I'm going to take that combo over most likely over. See how the season ends out, finishes out, but it's just going to be tough to beat him. I think if you're writing him off right now, you haven't watched football in the last 5 years. Seems like he's in it every year, but then again, I don't know. I mean, they're due to miss the Super Bowl, so we'll see. It's going to be exciting though.
The Ravens have proven to have the best regular season of any AFC team up to this point. So they could be the best team in the AFC. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. Sometimes the best team doesn't win in the playoffs. Sometimes things bounce the other way. I'm going to present another hurdle that the Ravens may have to overcome in the playoffs. Are you ready for this?
Let's hear it.
You mentioned the factor of having to beat a team twice. What if they have to play the Pittsburgh Steelers in the second round? If the Steelers were to, let's say they're the 5 or the 6 seed, they win their first round playoff game, they're likely going to be the lowest seed remaining. The Ravens would have to play them in the divisional round. We know how much those two teams hate each other, and when they meet, anything can happen. So I think that could be a challenge in itself before they even face New England.
Oh, absolutely. If they match up, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a one-score game, and I would still have to pick the Ravens, obviously, because they're a better team. But in those division playoff games, you just really never know. I mean, Bears-Packers have met a couple times in the last 10 years in the playoffs, and every single time it's been down to the wire. It's just I feel like every single division game, because you're meeting a team for the third time that year, and so you know what they're doing. You know what they like to do. Even some more bad blood on the line. I think beating a team 3 times in one season is going to be tough. And the Steelers have. I think if there's a matchup you want to, versus Lamar. I think you want a physical defense. Yeah. Good coach, and a offense who can control the clock at least. Obviously, the Steelers have their limits offensively, but I think Mike Tomlin's done a great job at just kind of dinking and dunking down the field and really working to what he's got there. And I think if there's one team that could beat him, obviously besides the Chiefs and the Patriots, I think it would be the Steelers, just because that whole division rival thing, defense matches up well. I think it's a good matchup for your Steelers.
Yeah, and they do face each other again either week 16 or week 17. I think it might be week 17.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, week 17 in Baltimore.
Ravens could be resting some guys. We'll see what happens, but the Steelers are looking good. I really like this Duck Hodges. He's become a quick fan favorite. Do you know the story behind Duck?
Yeah. My actually one of my roommates here at Purdue, he's a huge Steelers fan, so he's even got a shirt now that says something. It's like a Duck Hodges shirt. I forgot what it says on the front, but it's a funny shirt. He was super pumped about that game yesterday, and I don't know. I mean, they looked good. They're clicking on all facets, and I think the change from Mason Rudolph to Duck Hodges, I think that was a great move. Obviously, Mason Rudolph wasn't playing too well, and he kind of just put up a big gray cloud over your team for about a week there. And I think what they're doing right now, what the Steelers are doing right now is, I think it's good. I think they're 8-5 right now.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think their ceilings maybe AFC Championship, something like that, but I think they're definitely a team that could pull off an upset. They've got a great pass rush, physical defense, can knock down the field, control the clock with a good coach. I like their chances.
How about this as a comp? How about they're similar to the 2017 Jaguars with a lower ceiling?
I like that comp a lot. I do. I think that Jags D was just a little more special. I think that was one of the better Ds of all time. But I don't know obviously Blake Bortles was nothing special, so I think the difference between him and Duck Hodges isn't too substantial. But if they can get healthy and really get a good run game going, I think they could beat anyone just because control the clock, work that defense in there. Seems like they're always forcing turnovers too. It seems like that defense is just has that knack, like the 2019 Bears did, or actually 2018 Bears.
And these Steelers receivers, by the way, these young guys are really starting to come together down the stretch. It's Deontay Johnson returned a punt for a touchdown yesterday. James Washington has had some nice long plays and some good games here. That young receiving core is doing quite well, given their circumstances with it, an undrafted rookie quarterback and Juju Smith-Schuster out. I like what I've seen from those guys right now, especially compared to where the receiving core started at the beginning of the year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Jack, let me ask you a question. Just curious. What do you want the Steelers to do here? So obviously I think Ben's going to come back for next year. Do you want him to, obviously no first round pick this year too, so kind of ruling out drafting a QB. But what do you want him to do? Do you want him to go 1 year with Ben and then draft a QB the next? Maybe 1 year with Ben, Duck Hodges at backup? What are you thinking?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I think Rudolph is maybe someone you trade for, like, I don't know, someone could buy low on him, maybe see a reclamation project, 5th or 6th round pick.
I think that's very reasonable. I think someone to give up a 5th or 6th for a solid backup.
Yeah, and he could be a backup somewhere. And maybe there's a coach that likes him because he had a really good preseason. He showed some good signs earlier in the season, but he's just not the guy. He's not the future here in Pittsburgh. So I think you got to go with Ben next year. He gives your team the highest ceiling, and you're not ready to rebuild yet. I think next year you basically put the chips back in with Ben, and if this happens again and Ben gets hurt, now, maybe you're talking about tanking for Trevor Lawrence or one of these quarterbacks that you and I have been so enamored with. That would be my take. And Devlin Hodges being the backup.
Yeah, I like that. That's they're in a pretty similar situation as the Bears. No first rounder this year, and kind of just a little bit of uncertainty at QB.
Yeah,
but it's just tough. I mean, and they're in the same scenario as where they're both good teams with good defenses, and it's gonna be tougher to tank,
Yeah.
The thing I will say though is this draft class coming up, Scott. I was looking. There's like 6 or 7 quarterbacks who have first round grades, and will probably fall to the second round. So one silver lining for me and you, Jack, is that hopefully looks like a lot of teams are gonna need a QB this year. And so I'm thinking that a lot of these guys, maybe a couple teams take a shot on Jake Fromm late in the first, early in the second, and I'm hoping a lot of teams fill their franchise QB need here this year, and then going into next year, it's down to a 3 or 4 team race for Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence.
We'll see. I mean, I know there are going to be some teams that are thinking along the same lines as you and I. So it will be interesting to see where those first to second round guys end up this year. By the way, I wanted to say this just in case the listeners didn't know why they call him Duck. Can you tell the listeners why they call him Duck Hodges?
You go ahead, because I don't want to butcher the story. My roommate told me about it, but
it's very simple. He's a duck hunter and he makes duck calls.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't want to mess that up or anything. But did you see I think they were in their bye or a couple weeks ago. He went out duck hunting with James Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
I thought was interesting too, because that was Mason Rudolph's boy at Oklahoma State, and so I don't know. Maybe James Washington's got a little bit of say there, and Mike Tomlin saying that he wants Duck Hodges over Mason Rudolph even.
Well, I wasn't looking too much into that. What I liked was, hey, this is good team unity, that these guys are getting along and everyone's bonding.
Oh, absolutely.
So Tomlin's healed a lot of stuff this year. It's been a great year for him. Let's talk about your Bears here. I like what I've seen a lot, especially last Thursday night against the Dallas Cowboys. What I've noticed, I'm going to turn it over to you in a second. I like that Nagy is finally seemingly letting Trubisky just be Trubisky and make plays on his feet, because I think when you limit him to just throwing in the pocket, that really... There was a stat where it was something along the lines of, like, they read this on Thursday Night Football. Last year at this point, through 11 weeks, he had 26 first downs that he ran for on his legs. This year, he had up to Thursday night games, he only had like 4 or 5. And that poses a much bigger threat because now you have to keep the defense on their toes. It seems like a lot of defenses have just been like, oh, we don't have to do too much if we don't have to worry about him on his legs. It never really made sense to me of why, like, you've got Trubisky. Trubisky is Trubisky. Let him do what he does best. You do the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Now, they're not the same kind of player, but could you imagine if John Harbaugh just said, Lamar, I don't want you to ever run. Just stand in the pocket.
Yeah, no. I'm with you on that. I mean, I think that's actually been the biggest kind of disappointment to Mitch this season this year has been his lack of usage with his legs. And whether that's on Nagy or what, but I know he missed a game earlier this year. He had a shoulder injury, and I know it wasn't his throwing shoulder, but I'm sure that's kind of lingering around there. And I think another big reason why would be the offensive line taking a huge step back from last year. I think just maybe a little more timid in the pocket, which is something I've definitely noticed. But I think when he uses his legs, he's obviously not a great thrower. I think that's pretty much a defined fact now. He's limited as a passer, but he can make the throws. He'll miss a couple and frustrate you, but he's such a talented runner and so sneaky athletic that one thing I do wish is I wish Nagy ran designed QB runs, because to be honest, I don't know if the Bears have ran a single, besides QB sneaks obviously, I don't know if the Bears have run a single designed QB run in his tenure.
I thought I saw one on Thursday, actually. Where they were down in the red zone, and he had a nice run. I think he may have ran it in for a touchdown, or at least he took him close.
Jack, you're right. That was, they scored in that play.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah.
But that was definitely the first one I saw this year.
Yeah, I think it was the first one I saw, too. It was just a great... I was watching it with my roommates, and right after it, I was saying, I was like, wow, we need to do that more often. I don't know where that's been all the time, but in those like 4th and 1 situations, sometimes even 3rd and 1, I think when you can get like David Montgomery's he's a good blocker, good enough, but when you can get him in the backfield back there and just run QB power and let David Montgomery be the lead blocker, it just gives you an extra lead blocker. Mitch is good enough with his legs to make a play too if he needs to. And that's something I think that definitely been missing from Nagy's game plan, whether that's on Mitch's shoulder, the O-line, or what. But I've been impressed with what I've seen recently. I'll be the first to tell you, I was on that 2 or 3 weeks ago before this nice little streak. I was still pretty much on the get off from Mitch and maybe sign a QB, maybe not. Hopefully draft a QB so I don't got to pay the money. But I think at this point, with no first-round pick, I think it's in our best interest to save the money. We got to re-sign a ton of defensive guys. So obviously, I don't want to go out there and pay Nick Foles or Teddy Bridgewater or something to just be like a slightly better version of Mitch, a slight upgrade at QB. And I think if you give him one more year, we can see that potential. And if it's bad, it's bad, and we kind of tank, and not tank because too good of a team, but if it's bad, it's bad, and we get a pick there in the 10 through 15 range, hopefully, and then end up trading up for a QB. I think that's my Bears plan there. Obviously, I'd love to see Mitch go out next year and just prove the doubters wrong and just become a better passer, but it's tough. I don't know. He's got all the weapons around him right now. He's got a good running back, a couple good receivers, good offensive mind coach, and an average O-line, but he's just the epitome of inconsistency is what I'd say. He's been great, shows flashes of that, the reason he got drafted number 2 overall, but then at some points he'll miss just a basic fade route. Makes you want to peel my eyes out. It's a tough watch.
All right, I've got 2 questions here on the Bears, and then we're going to move over to baseball to finish off the show. My first question is reacting to what you just said in terms of what you would like the Bears to do next year. How about, let's say they hang on to Trubisky. How about signing a higher upside backup? And Chase Daniel has only started how many games in his career? 7 or 8. I mean, let's say Trubisky gets hurt, Trubisky can't do it, and you want to take a shot because they do have a chance to win. They have such a good roster and they want to save money at quarterback. I like Case Keenum. I think if you brought in Case Keenum this year making $2.5 million, and I'm not saying you have to make Case Keenum your starter. I mean, now maybe some other team would give him an opportunity to start, but if he's out there as a backup at that $2.5 million, I look at Case Keenum as a guy who can make plays on his feet. He can make plays when you give him weapons. We saw him do it with the Vikings 2 years ago, played at an MVP caliber level, got them close to a Super Bowl. What do you think about this suggestion?
Honestly, I'm in the, obviously it depends on cost and what you're giving up for him. And I don't know, because is he going to be a free agent this year?
Yeah, let's say he's a free agent and he's $2.5 million.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a great deal right there. We signed, so before last season, we signed Chase Daniel to a 2-year, $10 million deal, which I don't know if you know this, but he's actually the highest paid backup QB in NFL history.
Yeah, he is.
It's just pretty crazy. But so obviously he'll
Mike
probably.
Mike Glennon fit that bill for a little bit there too.
Oh gosh, that was bad. That's the Glennon era. I'm glad the Glennon era is over, and I think this is the last year that we're paying him too. So that's always a good sign. But so obviously, I'm pretty sure they're gonna let Chase Daniel walk this year. And what I think they do end up doing is, I think to your point, I think they bring in a guy like Case Keenum to compete with Mitch, maybe back him up, see how Mitch finishes out these last 3 games. You got 2 out of 3 versus a good defense on the road, and I think if you bring in a guy like that, like Case Keenum, who has shown that he can be a viable starting quarterback in the league, he showed some flashes of brilliance over there with the on the Vikings, and then has struggled since, obviously. But I think if you bring in a guy like that, I do want them to, unless Mitch continues over these last 3 games, shoots out with Mahomes and beats Packers at Lambeau maybe, and maybe even beats, obviously if they make playoffs, he's locked in for another year. But I think if he keeps the streak going, you've got to give him another year in 2020, probably as a starter. But at the same time, I think bringing a guy like Case Keenum would be. It'd be a good option, because when you get Case Keenum, you get a good backup, and then if Mitch struggles again like he did earlier in this year, then you can actually pull him and start Case Keenum for a game with some hope, you know.
And I think some of these guys, the Titans are paying Tannehill $1.7 million this year. You can get a cheap backup with a potential upside that could potentially surpass your starting quarterback. There might be a couple guys out there like that, in terms of a guy who struggled in one situation and now his best option is to be a backup, and maybe with the right coaching staff and the right weapons and he stays healthy, or it only has to play 8 games in the sense of him coming in relief if he's an injury-riddled player. I think there's some good options there. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I agree. There's actually one dream scenario I have, though, for the for the Bears going into this offseason. So it's a trade with the Lions, which unlikely trade partner going into the division, but
yeah.
The Lions would be sending the Bears Matt Prater and David Blau for I think David Blau, obviously my guy, Purdue maker. Yeah, I love him to death. He's just an absolute class act. He reminds me a lot of Drew Brees. But and then I think the biggest need even before worried about who's our quarterback going next year is fixing that kicker position. There's a interesting stat here. Mitch has lost. He's had 4 games throughout his career, one of them being the playoff game last year, and 4 games where he's driven down the field and got his team within, when they were losing, got his team within field goal range for a game-winning field goal, and the kicker missed it, either Eddie Pinero or Cody Parkey. So
Yeah.
That's been tough. I mean, obviously Mitch wins those 4 games like he should because none of them were longer than 50 either, so they're all makeable kicks. And
well, my one pushback to that, Jake, would be that in some of those cases, I'd like to know how many kicks that kicker had to attempt in the game, because I know at least one of those with Pinheiro, he was called upon to kick 3 or 4 that day, and that was the case certainly with Parkey in the playoff game. So I think if their offense was a little more efficient earlier in the game, then you wouldn't be having to ask as much from a kicker. And I think when you have to, you ask your kicker to make 4 40-plus field goals in a game, that's a tall ask for any kicker. They're bound to miss eventually. Now, but I do agree with you. I don't think this team should have ever let go of Robbie Gould.
Oh yeah, I mean that's tough. In hindsight, that looks like one of the worst moves we've made. Just like getting rid of Greg Olson. But Robbie Gould in his last year with the Bears, he was actually, I think, bottom 2 or 3 in the league in terms of kicking. And I think a lot of it's actually got to do with Soldier Field. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Soldier Field, but it's just
I've been there.
Yeah, constant windstorm. Obviously the turf's not great. It's voted one of the worst playing surfaces in the league. And then obviously the winds and just the rabid crowd that already is adding pressure because they've had so much trouble with kicking. But I just think this year I would not be disappointed whatsoever if the Bears went out and took the best kicker available in the draft, whether that's in the 4th round or 5th round. Obviously,
or the Sebastian Janikowski style pick 17 in first round.
Okay, if there's another Sebastian Janikowski, then I would not mind the Bears taking him with that second if he fell. That's just such a big need. I mean, that's just like this year we could be holding our own destiny now going into the playoffs because we play the Vikes in 1 game. We're 2 games back right now, and that earlier in the year we're playing the Chargers. And Eddie Pinheiro missed his, I think, 2nd, maybe 3rd field goal of the game, and it was a chip shot to win it when we were down by 2. So just things like that. It's been frustrating to be a Bears fan,
Yeah, my last Bears question and then we got to move on. So let's do this quick. All right, so the Bears, I know you came into the season with a lot of optimism, as most Bears fans did. It seems like a lot of Bears fans have resigned much of their hope for this season, at least. They've got 3 games left. They play Kansas City, they play Minnesota, and they play in Green Bay. If I tell you they're 7-6, I tell you they go 8-8, but they get the win in Green Bay, and it keeps Green Bay from winning the division. Are you somewhat satisfied with that result?
I mean, obviously, you want them to win out and make the playoffs, but I think those chances, this percentage odds are at like 5% or something like that. So odds are not in our favor. It would be a magical run if it did happen. But yeah, I think best case scenario in terms of missing the playoffs would be that we win one of these last 3 games. And if I'm going to choose, it'd definitely be the Packers game, giving them some taste of their own medicine. They beat us at Soldier Field in week 1 and beating them at Lambeau and hopefully knocking them out of first place in the division. That'd be something I could get behind for sure. And Mitch, I'd like to see Mitch play well too, because at this point, like I said, there's really you're not gonna be able to draft a QB, can't give up significant trade capital to trade up for a key. And so I think Mitch plays well. We win that game at Lambeau, and I think that's probably best case scenario at this point, or second best case scenario, obviously.
Yeah, I would think that would be the case. All right, so let's move over to the hot stove. Not too much to talk about. We haven't had any huge stuff, but the winter meetings beginning today in San Diego, my favorite city in the United States that I've been to. San Diego, it's just a perfect city, very positive, warm area. Weather-wise, and just people being friendly and happy. I love that place. I wish I was there covering the winter meetings. Maybe I will be someday.
Hey, that'd be awesome. Love it.
We're going to do it here in the cold Midwest. Jake, Mike Moustakas got signed by the Reds. Kind of an interesting deal because I like Mike Moustakas a lot. He got, I think it was 4 years, $64 million, a lot of money, and he had been holding out, waiting for that big contract each of the last 2 off seasons, having to wait, and he had to sign the 1-year deals. But it's a little interesting to me in terms of the Reds, because the Reds, he's going to have to play second base, which he was able to do this year, and he's a great bat, and the Reds need hitting. I'm a little curious as to why they traded Scooter Gennett, though, in the first place, if they felt they had a need at second base. Maybe they want to keep Nick Senzel in the outfield. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I was pretty confused too. I mean, I know you like the Reds a lot, and I like the Reds. I mean, they're definitely a team I'm consistently rooting for. You know, kind of a small market team that I like. Brewers and the Reds, two of my favorite teams in that NL. But I was pretty confused too. I mean, it wasn't a cheap contract whatsoever. I was kind of hoping the Phillies would sign Moose, but then once I saw him get that, like you said, 4 years, 56 or something like that.
I think it was 64.
64. Wow, yeah. That I just right when I saw it, I was pretty glad we didn't sign him. I mean, obviously we've got Alec Boehm coming up here, and I just think giving him 4 years. I'm more on the board of getting a shorter year, so like 2 or 3. I would have been content if the Phillies gave him 2 or 3 for $5-10 mil cheaper. But I mean, the Reds got to contend. They're obviously not the most desired franchise for free agents, so kind of might have to overpay a little bit. I was just a little confused too. You have Nick Senzel. Obviously, he played great in the outfield last year. Then you got Eugenio Suarez, and like you said, why'd you trade Scooter? They didn't. I remember the package for Scooter wasn't anything significant. And
and he's a hometown kid. He grew up a Reds fan, and he had his best 2 years of his career there. It just seemed like it was a perfect marriage. If they felt they had an opening and a need at second base, you just wonder if there was some sort of feeling that they didn't think he was going to re-sign or something like that. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, really interesting because, I mean, obviously Scooter probably better field. He's definitely a better glove. I think they're right around the same age. You get to keep him in his natural position. Moose is going to be moving to second, which I know he played a good amount last year, but still, you just obviously would rather have a quicker and just more natural second baseman out there. So I don't know. And both lefty bats, so it's not like you were really the trade-off there, in my opinion, was just kind of a more expensive. You're getting a better player, I think so, but at the same time, you're paying way more. You're taking a guy out of his natural position. I don't know how I felt about that.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like the most clear fit. And I would think that if you're going to give Moose that contract, you'd be playing him at third base where he's just better at, but that's not what they're going to be doing.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're going to have a solid year, though. I think Trevor Bauer's going to have a bounce-back year. Obviously, Sonny Gray, they've kind of rejuvenated him a little bit. Luis Castillo is just unbelievable watch. Maybe the best changeup in baseball. It's just I'm rooting for him. I'm definitely rooting for him. The NL Central is going to be tough, though. It's going to be another year where 4 out of the 5 teams are competing. I think the Pirates are going to end up tanking here. That's I don't know if you've heard much of those Marte rumors, but I'm hoping the Phillies can hop in there. I'd love to see Starling Marte and Kyle Crick in Philly pinstripes.
All right, let's talk about another move. Really, I only got a few here. Let's talk about the next one. The Braves going and getting your boy, Cole Hamels. I know a lot of you Phillies fans wanted to see him back in the Philly pinstripes, but that did not end up happening. He goes to the division rival. Really, this move seems similar to what the Braves did last year with Josh Donaldson, where they saw a guy who is a little older. Now, Donaldson he's younger than Hamels is, but Hamels, they see, okay, let's just give him 1 year. We'll give him close to $20 million. And if it doesn't work out, we're not tied down to anything in the long term. We can just let him go. But the Donaldson contract paid dividends for them this season. What do you think about this Hamels signing for the Braves? And were you upset as a Phillies fan that this happened?
I think it made a lot of sense for the Braves. I think they've had, in my opinion, probably the best offseason in baseball so far. Obviously, not going to see whole lot coming from them going forward because they've got a lot of the moves out of the way. But obviously, Will Smith, they've been adding to that bullpen, making that bullpen one of their strengths of their team. And I just think that move made a lot of sense. Like there's no need to resign Donaldson. You've got Austin Riley coming up. I mean, you've got your lineup's loaded. The Braves have one of the best lineups in the game. I think that what they did need is pitching. And I just you never heard him in the rumors for Wheeler. You never heard him in the rumors for obviously like the two big dogs, Strasburg and Cole. So I think if they whiffed on Hamels, I would think that they're going after probably trying to find someone to trade. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a smart move. I think it's a great move for them. Obviously, I was not happy. I wanted Cole to come back and don those Philly pinstripes that he won a World Series MVP with. But I think now, in retrospect, too, after the Wheeler signing, I think it was a smart play for the Phillies to stay out of it. They've only got about $26 million to stay under the tax right now, and although I have heard a lot of rumors saying that the Phillies are going to go over, and John Milton said to hell with the luxury tax. I think there's better ways to get allocated that money. I think you got 1 year, $18 million.
Yeah, and the other thing I will say, the other value to this move, having a veteran like they had with Keuchel last year for their staff that can pitch in the playoffs, that they need. They need another guy who can go in the playoffs. We'll see what ends up happening with Keuchel, but also just a veteran who can help lead some of these young guys, Max Fried, Mike Soroka, Mike Fultonavich.
Absolutely.
And to have that veteran leadership and provide a guy like that can function as a coach in an odd way. And so I think he's just a great fit for that pitching staff and what they're going for.
Oh, absolutely. The biggest thing for me, the most disappointing thing for me out of this was obviously that he went to the Braves and that he's really not going to be he's kind of changed his legacy as a Phil. He's one of my favorite Phils of all time, and he wanted to come back. He even publicly stated that, still has a house in the Philly area. And it's just sad because you know how the Philly fans are. They're rash and love them, but they're not a forgiving fan base. So,
yeah.
Remember, Jason Worth got a mega deal with Nats after he left the Phillies. They didn't even try to re-sign him, and he got booed every single time he came back. So I'm assuming it's not going to be a warm welcome at all for Cole Hamels in 2020.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you now about the other big signing from last week that involves your Phillies. They pick up Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler getting close on 30 years. I think he's either 29 or 30. Lot of untapped potential there. Finished both of the last two seasons wonderfully down the stretch. Post All-Star break, had one of the lowest ERAs in the National League both seasons. So he ended the season with a lot of momentum. I think the Mets were really foolish not to deal him and at least get something for him, or at least use him to clear off one of their bad contracts. They sign him for $100 million, 5 years. What's your take on this signing?
Yep, he's 29 years old, so yeah, you're right on that. But and yeah, I think it was 5 years, 118 or something like that. And
yeah,
at first, I was not really not ecstatic. I thought that was a lot to pay a guy who you're paying for potential. But then I read into it and, like usual, talked myself into it and got very excited just because the Phillies are making moves and pitching is our biggest need. So I'm excited about it. I've done my fair share of digging on him, and obviously the last two seasons he erupted after the All-Star break, which is something the Phillies desperately need after these two September collapses. And I think we needed that solid number 2 starter, maybe even number 3 if we can go out and get someone else. But I think I like the deal. We have the money to spend. He's got incredible stuff, and I think he's one of those guys that is going to change scenery and get away from the dinosaur Mets who don't really aren't very analytically focused. And I think he's going to get away from there, and he's going to go under Joe Girardi. If it was Gabe Kapler, it'd be a different story. But Joe Girardi, I think I just think the whole change of scenery is going to be big. Obviously, his wife wanted to come here because she's from South Philly or South Jersey or something like that, and so I'm excited about it. I think he's one of those guys that has benefits big time from a change of scenery, and you get the ace potential. I mean, he could definitely by the end of the year be our number one pitcher, and it's just for me, it's all just a matter of health. I mean, I know he's had Tommy John, and he's missed a full season and a half, I think, but other than that, I'm really excited about it. Just obviously needed that number 2 starter, needed to shore up the rotation so we're not throwing Nick Pivetta and Vince Velasquez out there every fifth day, or even worse, Jason Vargas and Drew Smiley. This is what we were doing last September. But I like the signing. It shows that we're in it to win it. There's a cool thing is actually John Middleton, Philly's owner. He was on a couple years ago. He was on, I think, WIP radio in Philly, and saying that saying that when he goes over the luxury tax, that's how the fans are going to know we're going all in, and they think this team could win the World Series. And from everything I've heard, saying that the Phillies are going to go over the luxury tax this year, and so I don't know. I mean, bullpen's got a lot of guys returning. Bullpen was kind of one of our strengths last year, just through picking up guys like Jose Alvarez had a great year. But next year we're going to be getting back Victor Arano, getting back Adam Morgan, getting back Sir Anthony Dominguez. I think if we can sign one other solid bullpen arm, I think our pitching staff is going to be definitely one of the strengths of the team. So the Zach Wheeler signing, I think, is big.
Couple updates from the rumor mill. There's some talk that the Phillies could potentially be signing Didi Gregorius and Dellin Betances this week, reuniting them with Joe Girardi, which really I think discredits a lot of the chatter from people who say, oh, the young players really did not like Girardi. They didn't want to play for him. And now you're seeing 2 of them potentially choosing to sign and play for him again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't know how much of that is true. You know how young players are in MLB too, is they'll come up and they don't really want to do their own thing, big egos, whatnot, still young and learning. But I think, I don't know, I have a tough time believing that any player under him hasn't liked him, because from what I've gotten from him, he's been an awesome guy, an awesome leader, and just he's great with that rabid Philly media too, which is pretty much the most important thing we needed. But I think, I don't know, I like you said to your point about Dellin and Didi, those are the 2 of the guys that I've got on here that I really want to make a move for. I'm thinking Dellin, we can get him on a 1-year prove-it deal for somewhere around $15 million. And then if we can get Didi's kind of a prove-it guy. Both those guys are prove-it players, and I've always been on board on that train where I think giving guys 1-year prove-it contracts is one of the smartest things to do. You watched how it turned out with Donaldson last year. Doesn't always turn out well, but I think 1 year is such minimal. And when you have the money like the Phillies, 1 year is no risk. You're maybe getting back Dellin Betances in his form. Like 2 years ago, he was top 5 reliever in baseball, definitely. And then Didi would just be an absolute force to our team. You know, we've been one of the worst teams defensively in baseball for the last couple of years, and he's a sure glove at short. Joe Girardi's gone a couple of different rants already about how much he loves Didi and his clubhouse presence.
Yeah.
And I think that's one underrated thing about baseball is when you're playing 162 in a year, you're playing every day. It can be an absolute grind. So having those guys like Didi who can, be a great clubhouse presence and kind of counteract on Gene Segura's supposedly clubhouse cancer. But I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do with him. If we sign Didi, kind of hope we move on from him, but wouldn't be too disappointed if we moved him over to second there, if we couldn't get any trade bait for him.
I think he played second in Arizona already. I think he's done some second. Yeah. I want to run through 2 other teams here, and then I'll let you get a chance to give your plug and say goodbye to listeners, add anything that we didn't get to talk about. Let's talk about the 2 teams briefly, very briefly, in Chicago. News coming out from both teams. There's a lot of rumors flying around. White Sox are interested in Marcell Ozuna, and I really like what the White Sox have put together here. They've got a great young core, and it's actually, I think if you're a Sox fan, you're probably more excited about this offseason than Cubs fans are, because the Cubs, it's like, oh my gosh, who are we going to lose? What's going to happen? This team's regressing. The other team has so much optimism. I don't necessarily see a fit, though, with Ozuna and the White Sox, just because the Sox have a lot of bats, a lot of guys, though, that don't really have a position, and Ozuna's defense has declined so quickly. He was a premier defensive player just a few years ago, but he's had shoulder issues. He's had some injuries. He's not the same guy defensively. I like the idea of him being a DH somewhere, and I think he could put together some really nice seasons in the American League, but I don't quite see the fit here. I do like the Yasmani Grandal signing, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I actually have him in my moves I want to see for this winter meetings. Actually, Sox signing Marcell Ozuna for 4 years, $70 million is something that
okay. So you like it?
I'd love to see it, but I completely get what you're saying. Get what you're saying with the lack of fit, because they really do need more starting pitching. But the way I look at it here is just pitching in general. But the way I look at it here is you're going to either Sox are going to end up signing Mad Bum for $30 million more an extra year, or I just really have a tough time seeing them signing Strasburg, and especially not G. Cole. So I think for them it's down to either Mad Bum and then maybe even Ryu, or I don't know. I just don't think there's a pitcher out there that the Sox that like.
Yeah, Wheeler would have been the guy, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. Wheeler would have been the guy there, still 29 and entering his prime, hopefully. But Mad Bum, you really don't know what you're going to get with him. I think he'd be a better fit on a team that's actually going to have a shot to win the World Series this year. And he's entering the later part of his career, and I think the Sox need to go after someone who can be a like controllable. I think they should end up. What I think the Sox should do is I think they should sign Ozuna for that deal, bolster their outfield, their lineup in general, and then go out and trade for some controllable starting pitching, someone like Robbie Ray, or someone along those lines. I think that's their best ideal, because you don't really want to. If you're a Sox fan, you don't really want to sign a pitcher in his 30s when you're still about a year away from legit contention.
I hear you.
And as a team, as a market, like the Sox are, where they really haven't been a team to shell out big money, and it doesn't seem like they're headed for the luxury tax anytime soon. So if I were them, I would try and lay low on the books. Not give Mad Bum 5 years, $100 million, or 4 years, $100 million, whatever he's probably going to get. And I would try and allocate that money. And if they sign Ozuna, they have sneakily one of the best lineups in baseball. So that could win us some games alone.
Yeah, in a hitter's park, and there are several hitter's parks in that division and some weak pitching, and that's a division that I think like them could have a quick turnaround in.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I've got one other Chicago baseball-related news story. The Cubs non-tendered Addison Russell last week, making him a free agent. I think the move makes a lot of sense for both parties. But I look at Addison Russell, and I know I'm in the minority here, and I'm not going to comment on any of the personal stuff going on there. But what I will say is he's 25 years old, has played in an All-Star game. And, Jake, you might not know this. Do you know how many RBIs he had in the World Series when the Cubs won?
I do not.
9.
Really?
Yeah, he led the team in RBIs in the World Series and in the postseason for that team. Clutch hitter in a lot of big moments down the stretch for them. Now, there's been a lot of other stuff that's happened since, but I look at this as the Detroit Tigers have been in talks with Addison Russell. If you're a team that lost 100 games last year and you want to take a flyer on a 25-year-old shortstop who has already made an all-star appearance, has a great glove, and potentially could, who knows what could happen? I mean, I still see an upside with this guy. If you're a team like that in the American League, I think this is a great guy to potentially take a flyer on. I'm not okay, when I say great guy, I don't mean it like that. I just mean in terms of this is a great option to take a flyer on.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I think it's it's low risk, high reward. You saw what he could do in his flashes of brilliance out there in that World Series run. Great glove, and I mean, from what I've seen him, he seems like a good guy. You know, he's obviously not causing you. He's not in the clubhouse starting fights or anything like that.
Correct. Yeah, the stuff that occurred was outside of the workplace. In the workplace, the guys liked him. His teammates liked him. You saw a lot of them supporting him on social media, just not in the sense of, hey, like we love what has happened with him off the field, but they wanted to see him succeed on the field. They wanted to see him get his second chance. And he was one of the nicest guys at spring training the 2 years that I went, signing autographs with fans, taking pictures. So I don't think he's any kind of a clubhouse problem, as you were mentioning there.
Yeah, no, I think he'd be a good flyer. I think that'd just be a great low risk, high reward move that you can potentially get a building block at shortstop for almost free.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, Jake, that's everything I have for you. What do you have for me?
So just one thing, and probably the most important thing about this MLB offseason for me is that the Cubs and the Braves do not become trade partners. I think that could be a dangerous fit, and I think that could be a great fit. I think it just makes too much sense right now. I think the young that the Braves have, and you could argue they have too much young pitching to really get those guys in the rotation, get their innings in. But the Cubs need that young pitching. The Braves need Wilson Contreras. I actually saw a deal the other day that gave me nightmares. It was Wilson Contreras going to the Braves for like two of their young pitchers, and right away I got nervous, and I think there's definitely some room there for a Chris Bryant trade, because I know they've been dangling him a little bit, and I know Austin Riley could play left and whatnot, but I'm just really hoping that the Braves and Cubs do not add up as trade partners, and we keep those young Braves pitchers young and on the team, and they don't cash them in for any win now moves.
Well, I'll give you why you might not need to be too concerned. The Chris Bryant thing, we don't know what's going to end up. He end up having only 1 year left of control. His arbitration hearing, or I guess it's not really an arbitration hearing, but we still got to figure out, because there's been this grievance against the Cubs.
Yeah.
So that's going to tie them up from trading him until teams know how much control they're going to have. So that could be a thing that's not resolved until February. So I think with the Cubs, and personally, I would love to see the Cubs re-sign this guy and make him a Cub for life. I think he's an MVP, best player when they won the World Series, and still, in my opinion, the Cubs' best bat. I just think that if there's a move to be made, it happens in the middle of the season with Chris Bryant. I don't think it happens before, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But I think that grievance is going to tie them down. Now, if they got word over the next week, he only has 1 year left, now I think you could start sweating bullets as a Phillies fan, because then I think they're going to make that trade. So that could potentially slow down the process. That's my take on Bryant. The one with Contreras, the Braves did give Travis d'Arnaud $8 million this year. I think another $8 million next year, 16 for 2 years. I don't know if they'd trade for Contreras and put that much money at the catcher position. So that's where I don't really know. They could line up.
I'm hoping. I just think it makes a little too much sense. I mean, obviously the Phillies and Cubs, I've been looking for a matchup there in trade, but it's just the Phillies don't have the young pitching. Braves do. And Braves are a team that they're never really going to go with the big fish in free agency, but they've already got two big fishes on their team right now, and Acuna and Freeman. And if they add
and Albies too,
Chris Bryant, yeah, Albies is a stud too. But if they add that Chris Bryant, and you get three superstars, and That's when it starts getting dangerous, and the Phillies are gonna have to settle for that wild card.
Anything else today, Jake?
One last thing. As you might know, I'm definitely a Brewers bear, probably my second favorite team in the MLB. And one thing I think I'd like them to do a lot is I think one move they make while Christian Yelich, their best player of all time, is still in his prime. I think they need to sign Josh Donaldson to a 4-year, $75 million
Take
deal.
him away from the Braves,
Maybe
too, right?
Him
That's the other nice benefit of this.
Yeah. I think he ends up in Texas, if not. Maybe depending on where Rendon goes too, obviously. But I would love to see the Brewers go out and make a big splash like that. You just really never see the Brewers, going out and signing free agents. Obviously, a small market team, but I think this is their window right now. Christian Yelich is in his prime, best player in their franchise history probably, and Ryan Braun not getting any younger. So that's one move I'd like to see. And then obviously Cubs and Braves, just to make sure those two, Theo Epstein and Alex Anthopoulos, just need to excommunicate them. So
yeah.
It's gonna be a good offseason though.
I'll give you here. We'll finish with this. I'm gonna give you a free agent. You're gonna tell me in one word the destination that you think they end up in, because I know you've worked really hard on this. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll do the big three. Steven Strasburg.
I think he ends up back in Washington.
Okay. Garrett Cole.
I think Garrett Cole obviously depended on Strasburg. I think Strasburg could end up in New York too, but I think Garrett Cole ends up in LA. I think they go balls to the wall, and I think they realize that they got to sign Mike, or that they got to win with Mike Trout now, and this is their window. You saw him shell out to Pujols, and I think if he got the same offer that he did in New York, I think he'd go to LA. So I really want to see that too. I'd love to see that.
So then the Yankees don't get either of them.
I know, yeah. That's one thing that it's tough to grasp, but I could definitely see the Yankees signing Strasburg. I could definitely see him signing G. Cole. Obviously, I'm a little biased because I don't like the Yankees, but I'm kind of wishful thinking, hoping that they're not going to sign one of the big free agents, which is probably kind of a very wishful thinking. But I'd love to see G. Cole go to Los Angeles, go out west, go to the AL, and then or stay in the AL, and then Strasburg. I'd love to see him go to the AL too, but I think the Nats will end up re-signing him.
Okay, and the last one, Hector Rendon, I've called him Hector Rendon so many times. Anthony Rendon.
Interesting Twitter read. I'm actually reading right here. I was just peeping through to see if we had any rumors, and there's one on that. The Phillies are, I guess, going all in for. It says one official involved in this market believes Philly was more than a casual player on Rendon. So obviously, Jack, I'm going to go with my boys. We sign Anthony Rendon, package Reese or Bohm for some pitching, and that's exactly what I want them to do. But we'll see. I think realistically he ends up in Texas though. Going back home, it seems like they want to give him the money.
I think he's going to end up in either Texas or LA. I think I could really picture him with the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers might be, I don't want to use the term restless. I don't think they're getting restless, but I think they could be hungry to make a big move. I think we might see something like that. So
yeah, absolutely. I think, and they're being quiet this offseason. I think they're gonna strike. I could easily see them signing Rendon and trading Justin Turner. Oh, I was gonna say, or even moving to first. I don't know if they want to do that with throw Bellinger, because I know they were talking about trading AJ Pollock, so you could potentially move Bellinger to center, move Justin Turner over to first, and wow, that'd be a scary lineup.
Yeah, it would. Jake, you did a great job. Absolutely knocked it out of the park today on the Jack Vita Show. Thank you so much for joining me. Lastly, before I say goodbye, is there anything that you would like to plug or promote here? You want to throw out your social media handles, anything like that?
Nah, I'm not a huge social media guy. Usually use just use my Twitter to keep up to date on the winter meetings and all things sports. But I just want to say thank you for having me on, Jack. It was a great time.
Yeah, my pleasure. We'll have to do it again sometime in the new year, either with Major League Baseball coming up or March Madness, something like that.
Yeah, I'd love to do a March segment, maybe a little 50-50 March Madness and spring training baseball.
Yeah, and I know you're big on the NFL draft too, so that could be the perfect time.
Absolutely.
All right, look forward to doing it. Thank you so much, Jake. Have a great day.
All right, take it easy, man. Appreciate it.
That was a fun conversation. Wow. It's funny, I was texting Jake to set up this conversation, this podcast, and he told me he was only going to have about 45 minutes, and that ended up, he kept saying, oh, no, I got a little more time, and we ended up going an hour and a half. So hopefully I did not make him late. I gave him plenty of opportunities to opt out, but he was having so much fun, and he did an excellent job for us today. Coming up on the podcast later this week, I'm going to, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm going to talk with Paul Oren from the Northwest Indiana Times, and we're going to share our all-MLB decade team, our all-decade NBA team, our all-decade NFL team, and our all-decade college basketball team. So that is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to call it All-Decade Sports. We've got a bonus episode being recorded this weekend. Santa Claus 2 on the way with Tommy Weber. He comes back after we did our Santa Claus 1 last year, one of our most popular episodes from 2018, the first year of the podcast. We're almost done with year 2 of the Jack Vita Show. If you'd like to show your support for the podcast, as I mentioned in a previous episode, I'm in the process of ordering a lot of Jack Vita Show stickers. They're going to be 3 inches by 3 inches. You can put it on your water bottle, your door if you're at a college campus or your apartment, or on your laptop, wherever you want it to go. But it'll be an opportunity for you to rep the podcast, help get the word out about it. If you live far from me and you don't live in Chicago area, I can mail the stickers to you if you are able to give me a little bit for the shipping. I can't imagine it being more than $2 for me to mail. It's not going to be a very heavy order of stickers. So just, if you like a sticker, whether you live near me or you don't, message me on Twitter, message me on Instagram, send me a DM, and I'll hook you up. If you would like to get in touch with me on social media, my Twitter and Instagram handle is at Jack Vita Show. Very simple, just the title of this podcast, at Jack Vita Show. Love interacting with all of you listeners on there, hearing your thoughts on the episode. Let me know where you think Garrett Cole is going to end up as a free agent, and Anthony Rendon, not Hector Rendon. not Hector Rendon. Let me know who you think what the Bears should do at quarterback next year. I love hearing your thoughts. I love hearing your comments. If you enjoy what you're listening to on this podcast, subscribe to the Jack Vita Show on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and you will never miss an episode. You will always be notified whenever there is a new episode available. In fact, the subscribers are the ones who get the podcast before it's distributed to the Apple Store. So there are many benefits to subscribing. Make sure you do that. If you like what you're hearing, leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Those reviews go a long way on the podcast. In fact, I think I'm going to start reading the 5-star ratings and reviews at the end of the episode so people can get a shout out that way. You can even, in the reviews, you can give an idea of, ooh, I like this episode, but you know what? I'd really like it if they covered the NFL draft or did an episode on Elf or whatever. You can give some suggestions. Just be friendly. Only 5-star reviews. Anything less than that is going to hurt the podcast. So if you're going to give a rating and a review, give a 5-star review, write a few kind words. Goes a long way to help me and this show. Thank you again to everyone for listening. Looking forward to getting more content out to you soon. Thank you for staying patient with me as I recovered from bronchitis. Have a great week. Bring in the dancing lobsters.